Welcome back to Combust Astrology. My name is Liv, and we're going to be going into the Mars returning back into Leo transit. We're going to be taking a quick look. The time of the event, if you're on the Eastern Standard Time, is 1 a.m. ish. And taking a look at this transit, what do we have as well as Mars going back into Leo? A story that has been a really trying one, a very, very, very trying one with just the back and forth of needing to achieve so much and finally getting to address your emotions and address how you feel and sitting with yourself, depending on where you have Mars in your chart, to then moving forward and having some peace. And it's not exactly fully peaceful with some of the other placements, but choosing your well being in a sense. So let's talk about the other placements we have. The initial ingress is going to have late degrees of the moon in Sagittarius. We do want to keep in mind Juno retrograding back into Scorpio and those long term commitments that we thought were perfect and possible that aren't happening, especially as Mars, as it leaves that last degree of Cancer at the 29th degree, was trining that and feeling like it's over. But it's not. It's not. The it's over should really be that Mars is no longer in Cancer. Um, the initial problem, or let's not just say problem, the initial shock factor I think that we should address, though, in all of this is the fact that Mars is going to be directly opposing Pluto and Aquarius. And depending on where you have these two playing, it really is like you're the superstar on Broadway, but you don't want the 10-year veterans getting jealous at you. Yeah, they probably would anyway, but you don't want to make it so much more so. Like there's a sense of needing you to be humble, but when I think of leaving Mars in Cancer, it's more like you are to yourself right now, recovering from March and everything that's happened so far as Mars has been in Cancer, going back to when we had that that full moon back in, I believe, January, or whatever happened during that period of time till now, and all these aspects that Mars has had in Cancer. I believe it opposed, when it was opposing back in December, um, Pluto, and November, before it went into um, Aquarius and it was in Capricorn. Like, I believe it had that opposition. I know Pluto definitely opposed, and we saw how that affected us all politically. But here, as it's back in your own personal chart, we are starting this giant chaotic like issue, which is the Neptune and Mercury right now conjunct in Aries is, I'm sure you're already feeling it. It's not necessarily too bad per se, but it's very much like there is chaos all around me and I'm just here. The ego of people will most likely be on full blast while all of this is happening because Neptune, being previously leaving Pisces, being so dreamy and wanting to kind of be fair and balanced and having everyone have an opportunity, is now in the sign of individuation and I need mine first. And so it's definitely not going to be as encompassing for other people, but it will be, what is it that I have to now go through? I feel like it's a really good sense of the hero's journey. But as Aries is also in Mercury, the sign of our communication, having been retrograded, going through all the stuff it went in March, and now saying to itself, okay, no more. You have so many different people choosing themselves or choosing a betterment for their life, and now saying, me, because it's Aries. It's like, I am. It is the root chakra. It is the first sign of the zodiac. So everything is simply I. And because of this, as well as Mars and Leo coming out of the battlefield of Mars and Cancer, God, and then now being like, I really need this for myself, I feel like these two are just a giant surge of energy and desire, which on its own couldn't have been so bad if it wasn't for Pluto actually opposing Aquarius. And that opposition to me is like, okay, cool that you need your own stuff, but you still have to kind of sort of assimilate back in. And that's where I'm using the Broadway metaphor of like, yeah, okay, cool. You've done everything you can to rebrand yourself, but we all have. And you can't forget that. While you do have your own needs, if you do let this opposition of Pluto and Mars as it keeps moving forward blind you that you have to be the spotlight, you would have some difficulties. I do think, though, you should take this as a good pat on the back and still treat yourself. I don't think that you should just like, well, now that Pluto is opposing my third house with my Mars and Leo there, and Pluto in my ninth house is like, I guess I can't tell people how great I've gotten, how much I've learned about myself from it being in the second house, how much boundaries that I've set with my own personal relationships, and how much I'm giving out to people. Guess I can't talk about that. You can, for sure. But maybe not go out of your way to belittle people. And you wouldn't just be like, no, you suck, but it's like, well, I went through that, so can you. That sort of thing. It's like not direct, but it's still kind of there. That is the sort of try not to go out of your way that I would say. Another thing is because of the sun being in its exaltation and the sun, the sign is Leo, I look at this with these two and think to myself, and I cover this in my Patreon, to not necessarily just go after what was the wound. Like if you just got out of, let's say, a relationship or you just got out of a very chaotic period of your life, I wouldn't tell you to go back into the mindset of letting people know, like I said about the third house, that everyone is this way, that because I experienced this, it has to be this way. Because then you do yourself a really big disservice. And with this, Chiron conjunct the sun is like, it obviously still hurts. It obviously sucked, and no one's telling you it didn't, but you shouldn't just let that make your whole future based on that. That's what I look at that, because when Neptune, when Mars was still retrograded back in Pisces and you had that need to heal, the point of healing is to move forward and not come back to it. It's to not make that same mistake. And I caution you to not let the Mars opposing Pluto give you a extreme sense of ego that you can't let some things be in the past. Jupiter here in Gemini as well, kind of touching Pallas Athena. That is kind of subtle. I'm not going to focus too much on that. I really wanted to stay on the Mars transit. And as I continue to further do these types of videos, hopefully I can cover a lot more. But that's pretty much what I wanted to say for now. Just be mindful of where Mars is in your house. Be mindful of your fixed placements, and yeah, if you can, let things go. I still think you should give at least up to 5 degrees of Mars and Leo to just like still kind of stay on the low key and still be a little bit to yourself before you reintegrate back to all the current chaos.